All right, first off, welcome back to EMASS Sports. I think I had you on here 3 years or 4 years ago, so it's been a while. But first off, congrats on winning All-Star Game MVP this past Saturday, where you and the Masters defeated the Metro West 8-2. You won, or you earned the win on the mound as well as getting two hits offensively. What do you remember about that performance on both sides of the ball, for anyone who wasn't at the game or wasn't watching the live stream?
Yeah, sure. I think from the get-go, I wasn't sure it was going to turn out that way. I know, like in my first at bat, kind of struggled a little bit. I looked at a couple of good pitches and then swung at a pitch basically over my head, and didn't think that the game was going to go the way that eventually it turned out. But yeah, no, in terms of like kind of the hitting part, again, just trying to do my part up there for the team and just trying to, show them why I'm there and just trying to pitch in, make a contribution. I think with the first hit, I had two strikes on me. And all I could think about was, don't strike out here, put the ball in play, get the guy in from third, put a run on the board. And then I think with my second hit, I was just looking for a fastball that I could drive and got something on the outside part of the plate and did just that. As far as the pitching is concerned, I've thrown, I don't know, 1,000+ innings in amateur baseball. I've been doing it, quite a while, and I've had the fortune of, kind of being in that situation. So the pitching part to me is definitely a lot easier. I feel a lot more comfortable on the mound, and I felt like I had a little something extra on the ball, Saturday. Was able to hit my spots, and as always, the defense did a great job behind me.
I was gonna say you're one of three Rockies who are on the All-Star team. Mike Tufo and Mike Feetham as well. And both of them are in the top five on your team in runs scored, RBIs, and hits as well. So describe their impact on your team, and what impressed you about their All-Star performance, if that's relevant as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I've had the pleasure of, playing with the Mikes. We affectionately call ourselves the Mikes. There's actually six or seven of us on the Rockies team. And I've had the pleasure of, playing with Mike and Mike now for a few years. They're great guys, good personalities, like in the clubhouse and everything. They keep things light. Tufo is oftentimes, late to getting to games. That's probably the one drawback. He gets there a few minutes before the start time, but he's got young kids and he's traveling a long way to make it to the games. But on a serious note, no, those guys are great and they're good ball players. They definitely lighten the load for me from an offensive standpoint. I love having both of them in front of me. They get on base. Mike Feetham especially draws a lot of walks. And Mike Tufo has just been, he's really come on the last couple of years as far as swinging the bat. So it's an honor to kind of hit behind them and to kind of see how they've progressed over the last couple of years.
Well, on a personal level, you're also ranked second in the Masters division in RBIs and with 18. So what's your approach on the plate kind of overall this season? I mean, obviously we see what you did in the All-Star game, but in terms of the full scope of the entire season, what's your approach? And does it change at all?
Yeah, I think when you have runners on, I think your approach to hitting is just different in general. Like you're not necessarily, trying to swing for the fences, right? You're just trying to make hard contact, get a pitch that you can handle and just hit it hard, drive it somewhere and get as many runs in as possible. And I think like this year, I've just had the fortune of guys being on base when I've come to the plate. And I've just been able to execute. I've, hit the ball pretty hard. This is probably, I'd say, my best year hitting in the last three or four in terms of like contact and putting it where I want and just getting the job done. So, but none of this stuff happens unless the guys in front of me get on base, and they've really excelled at that.
Oh, okay. And then obviously on the mound, that was another reason you were picked for the All-Star game, and obviously part of the reason you're the MVP. So you're ranked tops in wins, innings pitched, and strikeouts on the Rockies. What's the secret to your success that you haven't talked about yet? Just overall during the season as well.
Yeah, I would say the main thing is just staying in shape. So I'm going to be turning 50 next month. And I know like over the last couple of years, I've kind of changed, my approach as far as like staying fit and the things that I'm doing at the gym. I swim, I do yoga, I lift weights, I jump rope, I play basketball. I try to, mix in different exercises. And I think in order to be effective, like at this level, right, and to show up and to, to make it meaningful, like, you don't want to stink out there, right? You want to do well, you want to perform, and for me, the only way to kind of keep doing this is to keep the weight off and to keep exercising and getting as much rest as possible, like the night before game. So these are like just some of the things that I think that I've done in recent years to just keep performing at the level that I'm shooting for.
And on that note, do you have any pregame snacks or pregame routines that you have that kind of help you get ready for that? Besides obviously working out, food or anything that you would give advice to for people that might want to join the league or just play baseball in general.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, I mean, I know like on like game day, I try not to eat that much like all together, and certainly like a couple of hours before the game, I like to try to load up on like, some fruits like blueberries and apples and kind of stuff like that. But, nothing major that will make me feel kind of sluggish, right? Because especially when I'm pitching, I want to feel comfortable out there and want to get into a rhythm. And I think it's important, to kind of manage the, kind of the food situation appropriately before you go out there. And then I would also say outside of food, outside of like the snacks and all of that, I try to get there at least 45 minutes before the game time. Sometimes work doesn't permit that, but if I'm able to get there, most guys will comment on the fact that I take out a Jagger band and I'll do like my exercises and then I'll do my stretching. And then I try to follow a pattern before the game starts just to kind of get loose and to prevent injuries.
Okay, and then do you have a specific pitch that you rely on to get people out in key situations?
Not particularly. I mean, I do have like a three pitch mix. I got the two seamer, I got the changeup, and I have a pretty good slider when it's on. So I would say with like two strikes, I do like to go to the slider, especially when I got the right action on it, or I'll go high fastball to try and get a hitter out.
All right, and then if you had to pick one hitter that is the toughest to face in any, that you faced over your career, who is it and why?
So it's, I was just talking about this with a teammate the other day. The one guy that always gave me trouble, like in the Yawkey League, and then I think like into the 30 plus league was Justin Crisafulli. I don't know if that name rings a bell. He played for Somerville, Brandis for a number of years, and then again with the 30 plus team. I could never get him out. It was always a battle, a struggle, just trying to get him to put, the ball in play to a fielder. But there are a lot of guys. I mean, he's probably the main guy that comes to mind, but there's a host of other players that have my number. And again, I just try to go out there and make a good pitch and let the defense do the work behind me.
And then conversely, as a batter, toughest pitcher to face and why?
Probably, honest to God, it's the slower guys that kind of give me trouble. I think I've done pretty well against the guys that throw hard. And I think the reason that is just kind of the timing. You don't have time to think when someone's throwing 85 to 90, right? You got to get the foot down, you got to put a good swing on it. But the guys that kind of have like those loopy pitches, they have kind of like the submarine deliveries, they probably give me the most trouble. And the one guy that comes to mind this year that I really struggled against was Joe Perna. from the Bulls. He doesn't throw hard, but again, his pitches are high low, and it's really hard to read like where the ball is. So I would say, the Joe Perner types probably give me the most difficulty.
Oh, okay, fair enough. And then, do you have a favorite pitching or batting performance personally that you've had this season, that stands out and that, had a big impact on your team's success so far this season?
So the one memory that comes to mind is we had a great battle against the Boston Cardinals a few weeks ago up in Lynn. I happened to be pitching and then, also, batting in the lineup. And, we faced three solid pitchers from their side, guys that throw in the low to mid 80s, good stuff for their age. And I just remember having a big extra base hit. I think I had a double. I knocked in a run with like two outs. And then there was another situation where bases were loaded and I was able to deliver again with the hit up the middle, drive a couple guys in. And at the time, it put us up, I think like 5-3 or 6-3. And then unfortunately, we couldn't hold on to the lead and we ended up losing. But that game was probably the most memorable for me this year. And even though we lost, it really kind of epitomized like, what I'm looking for with, playing in this league and showing up every Monday is having games of that caliber. So that was probably I'd say the best memory thus far.
All right, and then to just switch topics for a second, do you have a pitcher, MLB pitcher, either current or past, that you model your game after, and if so, how?
I would say, geez, that's a good question. Um, I kind of like the way that, obviously, uh, Otani, I know he's been kind of hurt, right, off and on with pitching, right, the last couple of years with the Tommy John and all of that. But, I like his approach to pitching. Obviously I like his stuff. I like how he's kind of strategic and where he's trying to throw the ball and what he's trying to accomplish. So I'd say Otani's probably my top guy.
Okay, fair enough. And then either pitching or batting wise, whose performance teammate wise has impressed you the most this season? I mean, obviously we've talked about a couple of all-stars that you've had teammates, this past weekend, but is there anybody else that kind of impresses you performance wise this season and why?
Yeah, so that's an easy one. So Andy Drexel, who is new to the team, I don't know if you had a chance to maybe look at his stats, but he had a one of a kind, phenomenal game against the Boston Cardinals at Adams Field. So the second time we played them, he homered against, arguably the best pitcher in the league with Yuki Herman. Made it look easy, and then he also homered again in the same game against, I think it was Delgado, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had like 5, 6 RBIs, something like that. And it was just really impressive to just see how he turned on the ball and how easy he made it look. And I think he played, I just got to know Andy a few weeks ago. He literally just joined the team maybe just over a month ago. And he played at Division I Hartford and very humble guy. But when you see him play, like you're just immediately impressed by what he can do with the bat. And, he's a good outfielder who runs pretty well. So he's been a huge addition to the team.
Okay, and I was gonna say, speaking of offense as well, you guys are currently on a three-game winning streak, and have outscored teams 40-2. When I saw that, I was like, wow. So talk about what's been the key or the secret behind that kind of stretch, because I mean that's a lot of runs for a three-game stretch, and how that's helped, you with pitching, because obviously you got a win in one of those three games. I believe it was a 15-1 game on July 28th. So talk about how your offense being that explosive has helped pitching and just overall team success.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to execution. I know like in the the game against the Metro Red Sox where we won 15-1. That's a solid team. Those guys compete. I know a lot of those guys, and we just happened to prevail that evening. But I would say in terms of just execution, guys they're walking, they're getting on base, and it just seems like the whole team is just having great at bats, swinging at strikes, and then just executing. Like Andy Drexel has been hitting missiles all over the field. Mike Feetham, Mike Tufo, Ricky Salvia. I mean, all of these guys have really stepped up. They lead the team with, a lot of the statistics, but I mean, they're really the reason why, we're putting up these big numbers. But it's not just the guys at the top of the lineup, it's also the guys like the middle and the bottom. It seems like everyone's like producing hits and it's just been a team effort all around.
Your team is was in the Masters Championship Series 3 of the last 4 years. So what is the key behind returning to that point in 2025 and ultimately winning your second title in 3 years?
Yeah, I'd say the number one thing is like pitching strength. Like a lot of these teams that put up like, the big numbers, they score a lot of runs. I think we have a little bit more like pitching wise than they do, and obviously our ace is Ethan Solomon. He hasn't been there as much this year, but everyone's familiar with who he is and kind of what he can do. And I kind of do my thing. I guess I'm a nice secondary pitcher, second tier. And then, but then we have other guys, right, that can also throw. We got Tony Leonis, who has a different arm angle, can put some zip on the ball. He's great as far as like giving teams like kind of a different look. And we're also developing Ricky Salvia, who's thrown a couple times now this season. He's a left-handed pitcher. He was big-time pitcher in high school. So I kind of feel like the main key to kind of getting back to the championship is just having elite pitching, right? Guys that can throw strikes, guys that can, get ground balls, induce ground balls and the pop-ups and let the defense kind of do the work. And I think the worst thing you can do is, walk guys, put guys on base, and then put yourself in a bad spot. So pitching would be like kind of number one. And then I would say, there are also situations where you got to like fill holes, right? I know like Mike Tufo, Joe Tufo have been great in being a feeder like for new talent for the Rockies, right? They were responsible for bringing over Andy Drexel, Ricky Salvia, a couple of other guys as well that are younger in age, right? I mean, they're all probably around 40, and it kind of helps us old timers kind of balance things out.
All right, fair enough. And then to follow up to that, which team poses the biggest threat to you guys becoming champions in 2025 and why?
Yeah, I would say it's a tough call. I mean, you look at the top of the standings, you got the Bulls, right? And you got the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals obviously have a more kind of like balanced team, right? They have like the elite pitching. I don't think their batting lineup is as strong as the Bulls, right? So I would say probably the Cardinals kind of get in our way, right? Because if they have one of their guys come out and kind of throw a gem, right, it's going to be tough to beat them. I do feel like, we can maybe score some runs against the Bulls, but the Bulls play great defense. You know what I'm saying? They might not have like the elite pitchers in the league, but they have great defensive players. They always seem to do great against us, and the Bulls actually have been kind of our kryptonite for the last 3 years. So I take that back. I don't want to see either team. If we can avoid either team, I mean, that would be my preference. Yeah, and I know, like a couple of years ago, we were kind of like that team that got hot at the right time. I think we were 500 going into the postseason, and everything just kind of came together. We gelled as a team, and that was the year that I think we toppled, Los Gigantes. When it was like the Cardinals and the Giants combined, right? And that team had an unbelievable roster, and we just managed to get by them. But it was a great moment, and it just speaks to your point that anything can happen. Any team can kind of go on a run. So we don't take anyone lightly. Even the teams that are at the bottom of the standings, like, we've struggled against, Saugus in the past. We've had a couple of defeats. They always play us tough. So we don't take anyone lightly. And that's really the approach you need to have as head toward the postseason.
Fair enough. And then, if you had to make a prediction for who would be team MVP at the end of the season, who is it and why?
Team MVP for the Rockies or just in the league?
Well, I guess you could do either, but I was thinking Rockies. But I guess if you wanted to make a prediction for league MVP too, I guess you could do that as well.
Okay, yeah. So I would say, there are a bunch of guys that are in the mix. Um, offhand, Andy Drexel has really kind of come on of late. He's really been just a huge contributor at the plate. Even like the other night, he had a couple more triples at Adams, just absolute moonshots. So he's been dynamite at the plate. I would probably say he's like my lead candidate at this point. And then also, Mike Tufo, kind of goes unnoticed, but the guy does a lot. He's one of our catchers along with Mike Stefani, does a great job behind the dish, and he's really been reliable at the plate. And no one really talks about him, but he does a lot, and you look at his stats, he's batting near 400. He's got a bunch of extra base hits, and he always seems to get hits at the right time. So I would say those are like kind of the two candidates for team MVP.
All right, perfect. And then final question, what should fans expect if they're coming to Rockies games this fall or in including the postseason obviously as well if you guys qualify for it because again you don't want to ever make any predictions that could come back to bite you, but you guys are in a very good spot, obviously. So, what can fans expect if they're coming to games? And just yeah, any words of encouragement you have to anybody who's watching this and would want to come to a game? What can they expect?
Well, definitely horrible base running. That's probably that's probably one of the things that we need to work on as a team. And Tony Inderleonis, the manager, and I will kind of, talk about how ways that we can improve that, right? Because we're probably the worst team in the league as far as like running and taking bases. And it's usually why we don't kind of show up in as one of the top offensive teams because we just don't take bases. We haven't done a good job of getting people into scoring position, and we leave guys out there a lot. But other than that, other than the base running, and I kind of joke around because it's been a problem like every year since I've kind of joined the league, and me included, with probably the least fleet of foot. But I would say, you come to a Rockies game, you're going to see great pitching. You're going to see guys that are intense about playing, right? We have a great time after the game. Like we hang out as a team, like basically the entire team. We go to eat. We have a few drinks, right? The camaraderie is there. Like we all like each other. But on the field, it's all about winning and it's intensity, and we're there to be competitive and we're there to win, right? And when we don't win, we don't like that, right? We're not laughing and smiling after the game. We're like, hey, what can we do better the next time so this doesn't happen? So, and I know it's recreational baseball, but it's important to us to show up and to be effective.